Hello, my name is Toney Antonelli, and I'm going to show you a little something about 3D animation. Now you may be asking yourself, well, why does this really apply to me? Let me give you a little bit about my history. I have 35 years experience working in computer-generated imagery. That started in 1986 in Silicon Valley. I was working personally with NASA's Artificial Intelligence Division using computer-generated imagery in order to visualize things. One thing I thought back then was, nobody's going to use Paintbox or digital publishing, or this is always going to be the realm of specialists. Well, as we see these days, they've become regular tools for everyday work in almost all environments. So why do I think that 3D animation is going to be a major thing? I'll tell you why. With the advent of the 3D printer and virtual reality, there's a very good chance that a lot of these desktop publishing things that we're looking at are going to become standard 3D virtual environments so that we can visualize products or services or concepts. So I know you're probably thinking, wow, that's some really complex stuff you're seeing in the theater right now, and you're right, it is. But it all breaks down to basic concepts. And those concepts are the 3D model, which is the 3D object that you can rotate. Then you have the materials, which is how you paint that object. And then there's the render engine, which allows you to render it in images so that you can view it, or in a series of images so that you can see motion, such as animation. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to start us out in is in the modeling section. And this is a menu that has a whole lot of different features. It has basic primitives, it has splines, Boolean processes, much more complicated ways in which of doing modeling. But we're going to start with the basic primitives. As you can see, there's a wide range of different primitives, and these can be utilized to build more complex objects. So I'm going to give us a quick tutorial on how to do a basic logo. And that's going to be done by going into the model menu and opening up a text vector. And this enables us to create a two-dimensional vector-based object. Now what a vector-based object is, it's basically just an object built up of a series of points and connecting lines. And if you've studied algebra, geometry, those basic things, this is the way you define your object. Here we go. We're going to select the text. And I'm going to change it to say logo. There we go. Going to mess around with the font here, get a font that I like. There, that looks good. That looks like a good logo. Next, we're going to rotate it around in 3D axis. This is the 3D section, and as you can see, the top is the flat view, but in the bottom frame is the perspective view, showing us a little bit of what three-dimensional space it's in. Okay, over here is a whole lot of modifiers that we can go into. We're just going to pick a basic bevel, which is an extrusion with an edge. In here, I'm going to go tweak with the settings. The first is the first extrusion, which we're going to push it back. And then there's the second extrusion, and that creates your bevel. That way you have an edge on this thing. Okay, so here's your model. And as you can see, when we look at it in vector, it's a series of points that looks like a much more complicated object. This enables the computer the ability to rotate and to process those points and then render it into a solid 3D object. So here we've got our model. We could get a lot more complex, but we're not going to. Now we're going to go into the next step, which is the materials library. And as you can see, you have swatches here which have different names. You can go in and go, this is this particular material. You want to identify it so you know what it's on. And as you can see, we can adjust the different parameters like specular highlight, fall off, those sorts of things. I'm going to take this and we're going to apply it to the model. Okay, so we've just painted the model. We've basically spray painted it that color. And you can add chrome, you can do mathematical materials, ones that are based on algorithms that create three-dimensional textures on the object, but we're going to do a basic chrome on there, and that way, we'll make it look a little fancier. All right, so now what we've done is we've gone into the model package, and we've gone into the materials package. We've built the model, we've painted the model. Now comes the third part, the render part, in which we're going to go in and actually even though you have all these things in three-dimensional space, the human eye only can see a two-dimensional painted image. So even if you're looking at a 3D, what you think is a virtual 3D environment, the computer still has to render out two individual flat images that your eyes can process, because the eyes actually are two-dimensional by the time that it creates the image that you see in your brain. The reason it looks 3D is because of bifocal vision, but we'll get into that some other time. So to create this 2D image, we're going to go into the render menu. And as you can see in the render menu, there is a whole lot of settings you can put here that we're not even going to get into. Indirect illumination, which uses physics models in order to generate light bouncing off of other objects, those sorts of things. And all this stuff, I'm just going to go with the basic parameters that come with the program. Now I'm going to switch over to Mental Ray because it's a really high quality rendering engine, and all of these models can actually be utilized with different rendering engines. Okay, so I've got Mental Ray set up. I'm going to set, okay, I want to render it a particular resolution. Okay, boom, there we go. We've got our first object. Not too impressive. I'm going to jump into the materials library, and I'm going to adjust the reflection map because it just doesn't look right. And a lot of these things are tweaking. You get in and you adjust the wrap and the materials and those sorts of things. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and apply a UV map, which is basically, it's a modifier which tells the software how to apply that texture map. And I'm going to stretch it out a little bit. Okay, so here we go. I've got that all lined up. Okay, and now we're going to do our final render. And there you go. There's your final render. So, as you can see, it's not Hollywood special effects. I know you've seen those things. They look incredibly complicated, and they are. But they're based on the same basic modules: modeling, materials, and rendering. The only difference is, instead of 1,200 polygonal surfaces, there are millions of polygonal surfaces. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this basic overview of how to create a model, how to apply materials, and then how to render that 3D image out to where you can actually see it, print it, or animate it. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you learned a little something about it. And if you're interested, there's plenty of material online. You could jump on and start learning a lot more about this stuff. Thank you.